you can't be what you can see. 2016, there was no tech ecosystem basically in Italy. At the beginning, it was not easy because we were going in these universities and asking people, who of you is thinking about building a company? Really, nobody was raising their hands.
It's interesting to see how much role models matter and how much for students or young talent. So there is a huge opportunity. Like, how do you see the market in Italy, and how do you guys, let's say, position yourself to create these winners out of Italy?
So I feel like we are really at the beginning of the flywheel, but we need to push a bit more to see some huge breakout. But there's a new generation of founders that is more aware and more ambitious and is doing whatever they can to be successful.
How do you assess founders?
We select people before they have an idea. You don't always have to know clearly where you are going. You can always adjust and try to, experiment.
My God, like what a great conference you guys managed to pull off. So some of the stats that I saw, you guys drew around 15,000 people. And also, I think one of the big speakers was Jeff Bezos. And also, as I mentioned, Brian Kim and Nico Rosenberg this time. But also previous guests include Sam Altman, Reid Hoffman, Brian Chesky. Now, what's in store for 2026?
A lot of things. I don't know if you saw, but we announced a few weeks ago that the headliner would be Dario Amodei. And we couldn't be happier to have him this year because I feel like this is here. And there's so much going on that I can't wait to see him on stage and listen to what he has to say. And beyond him, we already have a lineup of incredible speakers. Some of them are already public, like Jony Ive, that I think, again, it's an incredible name. Sebastian Mallaby, thanks to you, that I'm really a fan of, especially the Power Law. And he's releasing in a few days the new book. I can't wait to read it. And I think it will talk about the new book on stage. And then we also have Noir Crespo. We have Zanni from The Economist. We have Luana Lopez from Calci. I'm so excited about her personal story also, not only the story of Calci. So the lineup is already looking great. It wasn't easy because, after last year, everybody was like, how can you do that again? I mean, last year was so crazy. How can you have a better lineup this year? So we were all a bit under pressure, but I think we are managing to have a lineup that would be as interesting as last year. And of course, we are trying to improve the event every year. So we're working on many things and we are very excited about it.
I have no doubt that it's going to be amazing. I think the first glimpse that is going to be a very interesting conference, it was when I had to go and prepare the going out of the stage or going in the stage. And I felt like at a fashion, like at a fashion show where you have like the catwalk and you have the lights and you have the coordinator, and now you come and then you have the sounds and everything. And I was like, oh, wow, I've not seen this type of level of preparation. And I think every interaction that I had with Elena was just really high quality. So I think you guys just did an amazing job last year, and I have no doubts that you're going to even top it this year.
I have to say that I'm lucky to have an amazing team, and they're always pushing to do things better and better and better, and then you can actually see it. And the good part of organizing an event is that, of course, it's super stressful, a lot of pressure and all, but then you get to see what you have been working on for 1 year. So it's also super, super nice because in other activities we run, like investing, you have to wait, 10 years to see if it was a good idea or not. But when you're organizing a conference in 1 year, you know, and you can see the result of what you've been working on. So it's good.
Absolutely. Like the feedback loop is just very short.
Yeah.
And also, if we get to talk a little bit about Vento, so Vento is backed by Exor, the
Yeah.
holding company of the Agnelli family, a dynasty that literally built modern Italian industry. They own Ferrari, Juventus, The Economist, and much more. Tell me the story of your first meeting with them, and then fast forward to today, taking the CEO position at Vento.
So it was kind of random because I was doing an MBA in 2016 and was also the anniversary of the founder of Fiat, Giovanni Agnelli. And the CEO of Exor, John Elkann, wanted to do something to kind of celebrate his great-great-grandfather. And to do so, he wanted to try and help Italians to build new companies as his grandfather did almost 100 years before. But, in 2016, there was no tech ecosystem basically in Italy. So we were just brainstorming what we could do, what could work. Let's look at what others are doing. So in the end, we decided to start very small and we start running entrepreneurship programs for university students. And to be honest, it was not a super job offer after, university, MBA, and a lot of things. But I was always contrarian about my decisions. So I said, I want to try this. And I kind of volunteered to do this. And at the beginning, it was not easy because we were going in these universities and asking people, who of you is thinking about building a company? And nobody, but really nobody was raising their hands. So we had to push them a bit and establish partnership with university to have students actually do our programs. But then throughout the years, everything started to now be better and better. And the students were more interested. The ecosystem was building up. There were more funds, more companies, more anything. And so then in 2018, we decided to do a first edition of what later became Italian Tech Week. But in the first edition, we just had 100 people in the audience. But among the speakers,
Wow.
yeah, it was a very small room. But among the speakers, we had Peter Thiel, Reid Hoffman, Alexander Karp, Luciano Alexandro, that back then she was at Axel, not even Sequoia. And so it was just great. And we said, okay, we need to do this and do it bigger and better and have a team and stuff like that. And so after that, we decided to launch the fund, the venture building activity. I hired people for the first time. And funny enough, 2 people in my team were 2 of the students of my very first entrepreneurship programs. So it wasn't a linear path at all. I had to build everything you can see today. I was very lucky because John was always very passionate about the industry. And even if he has millions of commitments, also much more important than what I'm doing, he was always very keen to listen to what we were building and make meaningful introductions for us and help us with the event because, of course, Sam Altman is not coming from me, even if I wish. And so today, we are very lucky to have the fund, to have the venture building, and to have the conference. But I'm also very curious to know how it will look like in 5 years because we are really growing year after year. And we're always challenging what we're doing and our assumptions because at the end of the day, what we want to do is to show that you can build a huge company starting from Europe, starting from Italy if you want. And we don't want to see any more people moving away to build a company, but we want to see them being successful here or wherever they want to be.
I mean, an absolute fabulous journey. And I think also Jeff Bezos said it on stage that, sometimes you need people like John that really puts their, passion, name behind something to be able to attract some of the biggest names. And, then all of a sudden you see that all the attention kind of looks now towards Italy. And I remember, I think Yoram from Deal Room, I think he had like a keynote speech where he discussed about some of the numbers there and how maybe Italy is behind Spain and France. So there is a huge opportunity. Like, how do you see the market in Italy, and how do you guys, let's say, position yourself to create these winners out of Italy?
Yeah, that's the same, let's say, assumption that we took into consideration when we decided to start, because looking at Spain and then at France, you can see that the trajectory in Italy is kind of similar, but we are very behind. Like we're at least 3 years behind Spain and 7 years behind France. But the conditions are kind of similar because the level of talent is similar. If you want to say there are cultural, biases or stuff like that, I mean, it's out of Europe. If they made it, we can make it. What we think there is a huge potential actually. What we are missing is huge success stories at the moment, because usually if you are a very talented person at university, you still think that you want to work at, I don't know, big tech companies or banking or consulting firms or stuff like that. But not because they lack ambition or anything, but they don't have many role models to look at. And so they just go to the usual path, let's say. But now that we have some companies that are growing and are doing well, there are many people who are joining these companies maybe as their employee. And once they do that, they understand the potential of doing that choice. And so now we start to see some of these early employees leaving their companies and starting new ones. So I feel like we are really at the beginning of the flywheel, but we need to push a bit more to see some huge breakout coming from the country. But we already see some of our portfolio companies doing very well. Of course, it's a long-term game, so they are doing well now. You don't know what is going on in 3 years or 5. But there's a new generation of founders that is more aware and more ambitious and is doing whatever they can to be successful. And also at the beginning was kind of hard to get investors from outside of Italy to talk to them because there was a huge bias on the country. But now, since some of them did a very good job with their seed or Series A, now that they are raising Series B, I get calls from investors from outside of Italy asking me for introductions or asking me to push a bit with them to get them on a call and stuff like that. That it's kind of crazy because when I started in 2016, was not in my wildest dream. So it's cool. We still need to work a lot, but the direction is promising.
It's interesting to see how much role models matter and how much for students or young talent, seeing that the entrepreneurship path is a cool one, is both that maybe your efforts will be compensated if you do well, but also that it's fun and you have the autonomy to build whatever you think it's best. And I think when you look at Sweden and Stockholm, you kind of see this multiplier effect that you're talking about. I mean, of course, you had VC funds like Northzone and Creandum, I think, there for 15, 20 years. But it took some time until you had Daniel Ek that actually had a company before and he sold it, and then he learned, what to do better in his next company. So then you have this talent recirculating. Also have a friend that worked for Spotify, and then he went on to, to create his own company, and then he fundraised. So it's interesting how these role models are just so impactful for the ecosystem.
I think it makes a lot of sense because you can't be what you can see. And in Italy, historically, businesses are family owned. So when you start, you feel like, okay, if I don't have a company in my family, I can't be an entrepreneur. But that's not the case anymore. And today, it's even more important to spread this message because literally, I think there has never been a better time to build. And I think also where are you building from is not that important anymore. So we really need to push our best people to at least try.
In at Vento, you mentioned that you have several programs, and I know that you invest in Italians across the world. Like how does the model work?
So our investment activity, as you said, is to invest in early stage Italian founders, and they can be based anywhere and work in any industry. And we do that because we think there's a huge potential in Italian talents because they are really underserved. So we do that not just because we think it's good for the ecosystem or for the country, but because we think there's a real also return opportunity for the fund. And then on top of this, we also have a venture building activity that as a model, it's very similar to Entrepreneur First or Antler. So what we do there is we select people, pre-team, pre-idea, pre-everything, and we pay them to join us 5 months full time and try to build their own company. And of course, if everything goes well, then we invest. And we started the venture building activity because for our investment thesis, the power law is very important because we know only one or two companies per vintage. And for us, a vintage is one specific year. We'll repay the entire portfolio. So we need to invest a lot to make it work. And at the moment, last year we did 65 deals. This year we want to do 85. But to be like fully functioning, we should do 100 deals per year. So the venture building activity was always a way for us to improve the quantity and the quality of our deal flow. And I have to say that as of today, some of the best performing companies in our portfolio are coming from the venture building program. So far was a good idea. And then, of course, the conference. And the reason why we started organizing the conference was really to bring some success stories to the ecosystem and push a bit the audience to think big and start new companies. But of course, now it's also kind of an engine for our portfolio because once we have all these incredible investors, but also companies, we push them to meet our founders and we hope someone will end up investing or they will establish some kind of commercial partnerships and stuff like that.
Awesome. Yeah, I remember which. So I spoke with Alberta, which I think went through your venture building phase, and she was telling me like, yeah, I worked as a lawyer, but I didn't like it, and then I didn't have an idea, but I've heard about Vento. I relocated to Turin, and then we had an idea. It didn't work. We pivoted, and now it's growing very, very fast. It's really wonderful to hear those type of stories where you guys help the founder from literally the first day, like not even an idea, you just kind of bet on the talent. You know, they are smart, hardworking, maybe they have an idea, maybe not, but we will kind of support them and kind of in the let's say in the process of finding the idea. And 85 investments is quite a lot, right? It's like what, 7 or 8 per per month.
Yeah.
Like what's the percentage that comes through venture building, the percentage that comes from, like, do you have some stats there?
Yeah. No, it's not a lot. It's like 10% is coming from the venture building program. Everything else is scouted or coming from referrals. So it's a lot of work. But I would say also becoming easier and easier because now we have 160 portfolio companies. So they are sending our way a lot of interesting deals. So it's just a matter of choosing the right ones. And for us, it's kind of peculiar because it's more the risk of not investing in a company than is doing well than the risk of investing in a company that is not doing well. So we are always second guessing ourselves when we pass on a potential investment because we always wonder this might be the one, and we can't afford to lose the wine. But I think it will happen sometimes in the future. We just need to try to minimize this risk and be as consistent as possible. But what you said on Alberta, I think it's also a bit of our unfair advantage because we are not like a traditional VC. We don't care too much about your curriculum or stuff like that. And we're always betting on real underdogs because, Alberta was a lawyer for many, many years. I remember the first time I talked to her, she didn't know what a pitch was, But it was clear that she was brilliant and she just needed a chance. And I have to say it wasn't easy because we had to teach her everything. But now she's doing great, and I know she will do well. And on someone like her, we invested super early, and I think if things are going the way I hope, we will have a huge return. So that's kind of our secret sauce.
And how do you assess founders? Because when you invest so early, I guess you might have some assumptions about the market. Maybe the market doesn't even exist. You see some trends. The product maybe is not there. So the only thing that you have is just assessing the grit, the learning velocity of the founders. Have you developed any type of, let's say, system, or how do you give them personality tests? I've heard of this VC that gives them personality tests just to determine, how outgoing they are and how fast they're learning.
Actually, we do that for our venture building program because we select people before they have an idea. So, we can't even assess the market. So we give them a test that is a mix of personality and cognitive tests. And we are now running the 5th cohort of the program. So we now have a lot of data because on average we receive 800 applications for every batch. And lately we did some work with the Quantum Light, the fund of the founder of Revolut. They are very data driven.
Yes.
So we were talking and I told them that we had those data sitting there. And they said, send the data our way. We will run some tests and tell you what we think. And in the end, it turned out that the most predictive criteria for the selection were the numerical score and the logical score. But then the most predictive criteria for getting an investment from us was the verbal score. So basically, when you select someone, it's kind of easy to be biased towards someone who's very good at numbers and logics and so on and so forth. But in the end of the day, when you have to invest in someone, you need to see that they are able to speak, they're able to sell, they are able to fundraise. So it's not about numbers and logic, not just about that anymore. So it was a very interesting. I mean, you can say I could have expected that, of course, but then see that on the data was kind of a validation because, of course, when we talk to founders, and if you see, someone went through ETH or someone went through MIT, that's to mean something, right? But then if they're not able to explain what they're doing, for instance, or to, I don't know, close a contract with a customer, then it's not enough to be good at math or whatever you are doing. And I think this is even more true now that even just building a product is becoming kind of a commodity. So it's not just about that anymore. Of course, there's still a value in that, but it's becoming more and more a commodity. And so you need to look for something else, something different. And that is a huge
Storytelling.
discussion we're having in the team, I have to say.
And yeah, I talked actually with Brian from A16Z, and also he said that he looks at the storytelling capability of founders, because if you're just not good at storytelling, putting together everything that you've done, the vision and everything, then it's just hard to convince team members to join your team, hard to convince investors that you're the right person, hard to do anything. And I think, like, to your point, maybe back in the day, if you would have like really strong technical capability, you would kind of build the product and then you can show it. And then you're like, well, they're not that good at storytelling, but they can build a product very fast. But now building product very fast is just the cost of building software kind of goes like very quickly to zero. So then you need to be able to kind of tell that story, and that affects marketing, hiring, and everything.
Yeah.
And with this wave of AI, like, what changed, if anything, in assessing investment opportunities?
That's a bit what we were discussing before. I mean, what is difficult now, it's of course now for us like 90% of the deal flow is AI applied to something, you name it. So what is kind of difficult when assessing those kind of things is understanding who has a real moat, because usually it's not about the technology, because I would say the majority of the things we see are in the application layer. So you don't really have a moat in the application layer. So what is becoming more important is like the distribution. So if you have a real edge in distribution, or the taste, if you have a specific taste that maybe is coming from your previous experience, or if you know your customer very well. And so you have an insight that others don't. And you are very bold on that specific insight. But I have to say, it's not an easy job, because now everyone is showcasing super fancy products, even at pre-seed. So it's not about the technology anymore, but you really need to dive deeper and understand if they have a moat in terms of distribution, taste, or what they know about their customers. And of course, I mean, for us, it's always more about the founders than the product, because we know that if the founders are really good, they might end up working on something completely different, but they can still succeed. So we sometimes invested in companies where we were in love with the founders, but we didn't believe at all in the idea. But we did a bet that they would have changed idea in 6 months to 1 year, and they actually did, most of them. So I think betting on the founders, if you do pre-seed and seed, it's the only way to be successful.
Absolutely. Betting on the founders. And if we change gears a little bit and get personal, what's something you wish you'd known earlier in your career?
Many, many things, I guess. But maybe one is that you don't always have to know clearly where you are going. Maybe you just have to have a vision, a long-term vision, but you can always adjust and try to, experiment. So I would say don't think too much about the tactic, but just think about the strategy. I feel like at the beginning of my career, I was spending too much time thinking about the tactic, while now I'm more focused on the end game,
And what's the end game?
The end game for that. I think what is good of what we're doing is that you have a clear result from what you're investing on. So I know that I want to do at least 3x on this fund. So I want to see if we're getting closer to that, or we are getting more far from that. And so every time I have a doubt, I try to optimize for that. I'm always wondering, okay, if I do this, am I going closer to my goal or not? Otherwise, I shouldn't do it.
Yeah, this reminds me of two things. One is how Rolf Botta from Sequoia had 10 at the power of 9, because that's €1 billion. So it's like every day he would kind of look at it and said, okay, like we need companies that are unicorns. But this is like many years ago. Like now, probably you want to have like decacorns. But that's kind of forces you to look everything like through that prism. And then like I think like the second one is like I think it's a book. It's called the Genius Zone. The book is much nicer than the title suggests. But I would assume that also in venture capital there are just a lot of things that are not in your control.
Of course.
Macro trends, a lot of things that happen. Sometimes even like founders because you're a minority shareholder. But then there are some things that are in your control. So if every day you can focus on, and it's a green file and a red file. So in the red file, you put all the things that are not in your control. But then in the green file, you're like, okay, what is in my control today to affect this type of strategy and vision?
I should read this book.
I was wondering. Yeah, it's really good. It's recommended. So I talked with the coach of Sam Altman and Brian Armstrong with Matt, and this is one of the books that he recommends.
Super interesting.
And I was wondering if you would unlock your phone right now, what is your daily screen time average, and what is an app that you spend way too much time on and you're slightly embarrassed about it?
Well, my screen time, I don't think it's too high. I think it's 3 hours per day. It's not that bad, right? But
I don't know. I'm not here to judge.
I spend most of my time on WhatsApp, of course, because I have all my founders on WhatsApp, so it's kind of my main channel. And then I spend a lot of time on the Aura app because I'm obsessed with my metrics about, sleep and health and stuff. I don't know if it's embarrassing enough. I feel sometimes it is, because before asking myself, how do I feel in the morning, I open the Aura app to see what they say. And if they say I didn't sleep well, or my score is, I don't know, under 70, I suddenly feel bad, the day will be bad. So I might have to take some time off from my Aura app because it's becoming kind of toxic, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, like I was wondering, like, what is the reflective loop there? Because we know that placebo works.
Yeah.
We don't know exactly how it works, but then how do you take that into account? Because if you don't sleep well, and then also they tell you, oh my God,
You're a mess.
like your batteries are low, like you're a mess. And then you're like, oh, God damn it.
Yeah, but it's true, I feel bad if your app also, they say sometimes minor signs of something strange in your body. And maybe up to that moment, I wasn't feeling anything. But then when I see minor signs, I'm like, oh my God, I'm feeling bad. I need to do something about it. And
It's like freaking out.
yeah, but I guess it's a trade-off because now that I'm using it, I also know many more things about my sleep. And so I see I can sleep better. So I guess it's a trade-off you need to accept.
Yeah, or like when you don't sleep well, you just take the ring off. Like I was
Yes.
traveling with a friend at Davos, and I think he slept only 2 or 3 hours. He had problems sleeping, and I'm like, Ola, just take it off. Like take it off today. I see that you're just so concerned and anxious about,
So
because
it's
you were
not
showing
just
me like,
me.
no, I think this is like a common effect, but maybe if it's one of those days, I just need to put it aside,
Yeah,
like I
it's
don't know.
true. It's funny. And also during the conference in the team, we all have, devices. I have the Aura, someone else have the Garmin or the Whoop, whatever. And we were comparing our scores, to see how we were doing. But it was also fun.
Yeah, I can imagine that it's fun. And the last question, if you could put a billboard outside of every founder's co-working space, what would it say?
In Italy, I think it would say dream big, because one thing I'm seeing is that now you see many more founders, even in Italy, starting companies, but sometimes I feel like they are not ambitious enough. Most of them are thinking about building local place, but I think it's time to be ambitious and build as someone would be in SF or in Stockholm also. So I guess that would be my billboard.
I like that. Dream big.
Yeah.
Diyala, thank you so much for taking the time. This was an absolute pleasure. I can't wait to see you again in Turin. Is that that's in October, right?
Yeah.
7 to 9?
Perfect. Yes. Thank you so much.
Alrighty.
It was great.
Thank you. I appreciate it, and see you in Turin.
See you. Bye.